As the final preparations were being made for the summoning of the next 3 Cardinal heroes to join Steve and officially unite all 4 Cardinal heroes once again, Steve would take a personal detour. It was to the county of T.R.O.T.H, a province, a part of Melremark, Raphtalia's hometown. It was a request he had been granted by the Queen. Steve wanted to help as much as he could, and the best thing he thought he could do was to help rebuild. That was just as important, if not more important than the fighting. To make sure that when it was all said and done, people could have a place to come home to. Of course, he knew for Raphthalia, T.R.O.T.H was a place that held many painful memories. It was where the waves first began, where Raphthalia lost her family, her friends, her freedom. Of course, for Raphthalia, it was a surprise to say the least, to see her home being restored once more, to see happy faces moving about through the streets once again. Steve was going to establish T.R.O.T.H as his home base for the Shield Hero, and bringing along all of those who had helped him along the way. Of course, for Raphthalia, it felt like a lot. It felt like it was more than what she deserved, but there was also something else. She was grateful for Steve, for everything he had done. If anything, she felt as though she didn't deserve any of it. I mean, Steve had gone through just as much hardship as she had, and well, he didn't owe her anything. And yet, even still, he chose to do this. It was far more than anything that mere words could express in forms of gratitude. As they overlooked the town as the sun was beginning to set, it moved her to tears. Of course, Steve could understand why, and even still, he wiped them away from Raphtalia's eyes. I've watched you grow, rather quickly. You are one of the strongest people I have ever met, Raphthalia. Your heart, your resilience, it's truly more than what anyone could possibly comprehend. You've been through so much. You've had every reason to give up, and yet you've kept fighting. It's one of the many things that makes you strong. I'm only this strong because you've helped me. If it wasn't for you, I'd still be... There's no reason to worry about that. Let's say that we've helped each other. We've become better because of it. And now, you have a home that's been restored. But it could be your home too. I know that when the waves are over, you'll want to return. But I've been thinking about that. Returning is a choice. And if I've learned anything from the others and from everyone else, I don't have much of a future waiting for me when I get back. The moment I return home, I'll be frozen somewhere in the Arctic for 100 years or so until I'm dug up. This might be a bit selfish of me to say, but I don't think the world that I left, I don't think it needs me. How could you say such a thing? You're a hero. A world will always need a hero. Yeah, but there are other heroes. But they aren't like you. Come on. That's a bit much, don't you think? I mean, I like to think that I'm okay. But there are plenty more people out there. People who will be way stronger than I am. Faster. It's not about that. What you have, it's far more than what mere power could comprehend. The power that you have, it doesn't come from that shield. It doesn't come from what that scientist guy gave you. The power you have is what's in your heart. That's what makes you a hero. And that's worth more than what anyone else could ever offer. You're more than just a shield hero. You're my hero. And you're my hero also, Raftalia. The two of them smiled and hugged one another, knowing that no matter what the future held, they would brave through it together. Steve would return to Melremark. He actually had been called for an audience with the Queen. He walked with her through the castle, moving through till they found an old storage area in the upper ranked decks of the castle itself. Steve and the Queen, they related, both of them having the warrior spirit, knowing the loss of love and things of that nature. For Steve, he got the chance to see the Queen in an entirely new light, but also, he actually liked the idea of having some private time with her. I mean, it wasn't like he was trying to make moves or anything. It was just that, well, she was a woman with a lot of beautiful, redeeming qualities, and she was a beautiful woman in her own right. I mean, of course, he would never covet another man's wife, although, technically speaking, she was free on the market, but that was besides the point. The Queen also was a bit nervous herself. Whenever she found herself in the shield hero's presence, her heart began to skip a beat. He reminded her so much of him. It was scary, in fact, almost like she was looking at the spinning image of a ghost. It was more than what she could even take, but still, she was able to keep her wits about her. As they made their way, they would both talk about their past. For Steve, he explained as best he could about the life he lived, the things he'd gone through, how he became who he was, and what led him all the way to this moment. To say that the Queen was moved by his past would be an understatement. The story of a young man who wanted to help defend his country, despite being denied. Having the heart to go through an ordealing trial. The courage to save one's friend, even when others shunned you. To make such a noble sacrifice. The sacrifice of love, of a future with someone. For the Queen, it was inspiring. Her story, as brief as she kept it, was a story of loss, compromise, faith that was sadly misplaced. The truth was, Alcray was not her first love. There was another. He was a soldier of Melremark. Nothing too extraordinary about him. He was decently strong, decently fit, but there was so much more to him than that. Whenever he went into battle, he had the propensity to pray for his enemies. Of course, when she was younger, she couldn't fully comprehend that. But as he explained, it took a lot more effort to forgive than it did to hate. He wanted to defend Melremark against the waves. He wasn't a cardinal hero or a vassal hero or anything of that nature. He just wanted to do his part. He had just a knack for being a sort of comfort, something that she truly grew to love and admire. Of course, because he wasn't of noble blood or status, them being together couldn't be official. But even still, when you're young and in love, you give into the thralls of passion, and you forget about the consequences. Some say it was a mistake made not just once, but twice. And thus, that was how Malty and Melty came to be. Of course, Melty were but a newborn child, and Malty were just a little older when, unfortunately, the man who was their father tragically perished. That left the kingdom of Melromark in a bind. The queen had had children out of wedlock. Even more so, while her father was understanding, he was still displeased. This would reflect poorly on them unless they could come to an agreement. That's where T.R.O.T.S.H stepped into the picture. He was willing to take on the responsibility. After all, a marriage alliance between his country and between Melromark, it was one that was looked upon favorably. Despite the hesitations, of course, there was a lot of bad blood between T.R.O.T.S.H's family and between the queens. It mainly came in the form of how their politics aligned. While Melromark tried to be peaceable with demi-humans and people of all kinds and nations, T.R.O.T.S.H came from a place where there was only one race, the human race, and any others were to be exterminated by any means. There were times when Melromark and T.R.O.T.S.H's nation did not see eye to eye. There were even times when they came into conflict. All of this before the uniting marriage could even take place. There was a skirmish that sadly resulted in the death of the queen's father. It filled her with so much sadness, so much hate. Despite everything she had tried, despite everything they had done, and even worse, she couldn't back out of the marriage. For better or for worse, T.R.O.T.S.H would have to be accepted into Melromark's, especially after the destruction of his kingdom. But even still, there was always a line of tension between the two. Of course, as time passed, you could say that something akin to that of love began to form between them. Not in the traditional sense, more so in the sense that when you spend so many years with someone, that pain, it begins to lessen little by little. The person you can't tolerate, well, suddenly they don't become so bad. In fact, sometimes they even had their moments. It would be a simple thing. He'd maybe fix her a cup of tea or coffee. She would make him a plate of food personally. They may have a silent walk through the gardens or a stroll in the carriage through the countryside. There were moments where there was tender affection. But still, in the back of their minds, they always knew that there was just an underlying hint of resentment. For T.R.O.T.S.H, because of what he had done to her father. For the queen, for being forced to marry him. Of course, for T.R.O.T.S.H, his country, one whose name was lost to time, it became dismembered, broken up. While there were originally 8 countries in the land, it was reduced to 7, following the battle with the demi-humans, the one in which the shield hero took their side against the oppression of T.R.O.T.S.H. However, the shield hero showed him leniency. Instead of outright destroying his people were scattered and dispersed amongst the 7 other nations. T.R.O.T.S.H was allowed to keep his life and his dignity, and even married into royalty of Melromark, but still, because he married into the family, the power he had came second to the queen. To say that that was humiliation would be an understatement, to say the least. All of that tension, all of that fury had been brought to this moment. As such, it was why he could never forgive the shield hero. The shield hero stripped him of his fame, stripped him of his fortune, of his kingdom, scattered it to the winds, and reduced it to nothing. Now we're only crumbling embers of what once remained a mighty nation. A nation known only as Sokovia. Sokovia had been disbanded. The people took residency amongst the other 7 nations, including Melremark. As time passed, they grew accustomed to the nations that they settled in, and to the point where Sokovia became nothing more but a footnote in history. As such, that was why Zemo hated the shield hero so much. Why he could never forgive him among all the other transgressions. And then to the Queen. He wasn't mad about the time he spent with her. He wasn't mad about raising Malty and Melty as his own. He had no hate against them. But still, that was nothing more but a facade. The man he tried to be, but sadly he could not. His ego would never allow it. His pride would never allow it. Before everything else, T.R.O.T.S.H was a Zemo. A Zemo would never take this disrespect. A Zemo would never accept this lowering of one's own dignity. And that was why. That was why when he had to make the choice to do away with the shield hero, he took it. He couldn't help himself. He tried. He earnestly tried. But sadly, he could not. The shield hero took everything from him. And as such, he would do everything in his power to kill the shield hero. Of course, all of this was heavy for Steve to hear, and to a degree, he felt guilty. Knowing the full situation, he didn't mean to cause so much harm, but Milray would remark that it wasn't his fault. T.R.O.T.S.H simply had to get over himself. He had been given mercy time and time again, and yet even still, he could not accept things the way they were. All the same, she felt as though it were a new beginning. Now she could live in her truth. But why had she called Steve here? Well, she looked through some old dusty shelves and places where things were stored, armors, swords, and she found it covered in a tarp. When Steve saw it, he couldn't believe. It was a round metal shield. The Queen remarked that it was made from a powerful metal. Although the name of such metal had been lost due to time, it was the shield that her first love carried. It was reliable. Even when his swords broke, even when his armor was damaged, this shield always remained. Of course, Steve knew very well that it was like his first shield. The one that he used to use, but still, was this fate? Was this some sort of divine intervention? He had no idea. The Queen, however, wanted to give him the shield. She wasn't sure why, but there was something in her heart, something telling her that this was meant for the shield hero, the man that her first love idolized. Steve took it gratefully, the shield seemingly disappearing out of his hands the moment he held it. Of course, the Queen was worried about what had happened to it, but she watched in awe as the shield on Steve's arm would transform into that very shield, but now with color of red, white, blue, with the gemstone in the center of the star. Steve looked at his status magic to see what shield it had become, and it was known as the homing shield. As they walked out to the balcony, Steve took a deep breath before wrenching his arm back and thrusting his arm forward. The shield would leave his arm, rotating in the sky, moving like a boomerang before flying right back to him as he caught it on his arm once again. The power of the homing shield. A shield that can imbue and carry all the power of the shield hero. It can be thrown with great force and has great destructive power. But more importantly, it was the only shield that Steve could actually throw. The only shield that could detach from his body. Because the homing shield always came home, back to the hero. The queen was in awe of it, and she was now more convinced than ever that this shield belonged to him. There was some festivities going on down below, music that was being played. For some unknown reason, Steve just offered his hand to the queen. She took it as he guided her, the two dancing in coordination with the music. Although Steve wasn't that good of a dancer, the queen was able to lead him. You know, I never actually got the chance to learn how to dance. Really? You seem to be doing just fine. Well, I had someone who was going to teach me, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make that date. Well, for what it's worth, I have no problem teaching you. As the two of them gazed into each other's eyes, their faces becoming flush red, the air becoming hot between them, the silence would be oddly broken as Melty would call out to her mother, saying that it was time. Of course, she also would blush seeing her mom so close with the shield hero. She quickly turned away as the queen, leaving in a hurry, preparing for the summoning of the other heroes. As Steve followed, Melty would just give him a sly smile. I see someone's getting a little friendly with the queen. No, I was just, she was just giving me a gift. I mean, there was music playing, and she's a beautiful woman with an even more beautiful heart. It'd be a shame if someone broke it again. I would never, Melty, come on, you know, I'm just teasing you. Come on, hurry, the ceremony's about to begin. Other country representatives would all be gathered together. The 3 new vassal weapons had been brought. The vassal hammer, the vassal gauntlets, and finally, the vassal claws. Each gemstone would be placed inside of the weapon's main functional systems. For the hammer, it was easy enough, it only needed 1 stone, but having 2 gauntlets and 2 claws, but only 1 stone for each, they wondered what would happen once they placed them in. As they placed the blue stone inside of the gauntlet, another one would appear inside of the other one, as if it was copied for itself, similarly to that of the claws. With that, the rituals would now be performed. Steve standing in attention, everyone watching on, as lights of blue, red, and yellow flashed from the weapons all the way to the sky above. There would be a great flashing light, and there standing would be the 3 new cardinal heroes. By Odin, where in the devil am I? What the? Jarvis, where the hell are we? Who are you? Start talking, or I'm gonna cut you all to shreds. Hold on, calm down, please. It's all right, you guys were summoned here. For Ren, Itsuki, and Motoyasu, their jaws were completely on the ground. No way. It's Wolverine. It's Iron Man. Is that Thor? Where in the devil are we? Thor would ask. You're in the country of Melremark, Steve would say. As they got a chance to get a good look at him, even they were taken aback. A warrior of Midgard. No way. How in the hell are you here? You guys know me? I do not know you, but I know of where you come from, Thor would say. The boy in the armor, his mask, would become undone. Steve felt like he recognized the boy. He looked just like Howard. I'm Tony. Tony Stark? You know me? I know your father. Yeah, my dad, he talked a lot about you. It's an honor to meet you, sir. Why the hell are you here, Cap? I take it you know me? But you don't know me. Judging from your heartbeat, you're not lying. Let me guess. You're from another world, huh? I am. You are? Some call me Logan. Some call me Wolverine. I'll ask again. Why the hell am I here? What's the meaning of all this? This world's in danger. There's a lot that we need to discuss, but long story short, I need your help. You've been chosen to be the cardinal heroes. All of us. We are the 4 cardinal heroes of this world. You, your name is... I am Thor. T.R.O.T.S.H, Crown Prince of Asgard. You've taken on the Cardinal Hammer. You're the Hammer hero. The hammer? Ah, yes. Reminds me much of Father's, Mjolnir. Is this another form of it? It's something entirely different. But still, I like it. For Tony, he would deactivate his armor, but instead of it turning into a backpack, it would disappear. Instead, he found 2 gauntlets on his hand that he found it difficult, if not impossible, to remove. And as for Logan, well, he found himself with what appeared to be a combination of hand gauntlets and brass knucks, with claws protruding outward. Although with enough mental focus, he could retract them back in. There's a lot that I'm going to have to bring you guys up to speed on. Some things that probably aren't going to make too much sense at first. But this is the main thing. We've all been chosen. For some reason, we are the heroes of this world. And there are others that could be at risk. Other worlds? What do you mean? It's going to take a while, if you guys are willing to listen. The 3 would look to one another. This was all still new to them, but they had a sense that if they wanted to get back home, they were going to have to play ball. So they were willing to hear him out. With that, the 4 new cardinal heroes would be introduced to the world. The 4 cardinal heroes were now joined together as one. Wolverine, the Claw hero. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, the Gauntlet hero. T.R.O.T.S.H, the Hammer hero. And Steve Rogers, Captain America, the Shield hero. They were the guardians of the 7 kingdoms. The guardians against the waves of catastrophe. Their champions. For Steve, he had no idea what awaited him in the future. the enemies that they would have to face, the perils that they would have to endure. But whatever came their way, whatever obstacles stood before them, there was one thing that he, the shield hero, were confident in. Whatever they had to face, they would do it together. This concludes The Rising of the Shield Hero, the Man Out of Time. What If Captain America Was the Shield Hero? Season 1, Part 10, the Season 1 finale. Like I always say, when we get to the end of a series, we get to the end of a season, I want to take the time to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who has supported PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Thank you to everyone who has supported this series. It's been getting great reviews, great reception from all you guys. Truly means a lot to me that you guys have enjoyed this series. A lot of you have asked for it for a while now. And I'll be honest, when I first started, I didn't know if it was going to be any good. I didn't know if it was even really going to turn out the way that I wanted it to, but as I got into it, as I got into writing it, I've been enjoying it more and more, and I really like the direction that I'm going with it. And for anyone that's wondering, this series will play a pivotal role, especially going into the future phases to come. Like, this one's going to be kind of like the centerpiece for where the next big crossover event takes place. So make sure you keep your eye out on this series, everything else that's to come out now and in the future. Thank you all for watching. Like I always say, I can't do it without you. You make the channel grow, you make the core grow. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time. Therese, Lark, and Glass would make camp for the night, still reeling from their battle against the shield hero. The group was conflicted. They weren't sure of what to make of him. He was truly a genuine and altruistic person. He didn't want to fight them. He wanted to help them. But could they actually afford to take it? Could they actually believe in him? Almost as if someone was reading their mind. From out of the shadows, a masked figure made his presence known. Clad in violet with a golden crown. Lark grabbed hold of his scythe, ready to cut him in an instant. And just who the hell are you? No. There's no need to be hostile. We are all comrades who share a common goal. I too seek for the salvation of both our worlds. And I believe it can be achieved. Tell me, if the waves were to engulf the other world, would you take in the survivors, the refugees? Huh? Lark would ask. I mean, if possible, I don't see why we couldn't. But the cardinal heroes, they're going to be the ones that get in our way. I think I have a method of disposing of them. If you can give me your word that the people can be spared, then I will help you in dealing with the cardinal heroes. And we can defeat the shield once and for all. Who are you? Glass asked. My name is Lord Baron Zemo. King of Sokovia. And I promise you, on the grave of my ancestors, we will kill the shield hero.